It's not very often that an MCU film would work its way into one of my most anticipated movies of the year, but that is exactly what happened when I first saw the trailer for Fantastic Four First Steps. I've just seen the movie, and I have some thoughts about this one, so let's get into it.
Four brave astronauts head off into space and come back forever changed.
Okay, so this one had quite a bit of hype and build-up, and with it being the final film before the next Avengers movie, I was expecting some big things from this. But honestly, what got me really geared up and psyched about this movie was not how it could set up something epic, it's more about the stylistic choices that this was going to employ. The trailer footage looked incredible with this new style of filmmaking that for sure isn't revolutionary, but it's definitely fresh in the MCU. It has what seemed to be a really excellent score, and going into more of a family drama instead of a big epic blockbuster seemed kind of interesting to me. And with this film, we do get a little bit of that, but this film does want to play it both ways and really excite the MCU fans, which does make sense for those who are just so excited for these projects every single time they come out. I was let down a little bit by Fantastic Four First Steps because as a whole, I kind of feel like this movie is more or less like empty calories. It was okay. I had a good time with it. I do like the movie and do recommend it. I had a pleasant enough watch. But the film is not something that I can see myself thinking about for quite a while. And I don't really have any interest to rewatch it, even if I did have a good enough time with it. Let's get into what I enjoyed about this movie, and I think it is the stuff that was advertised. I think the stylistic options here were really interesting. I like that it was going for this 50s vibe. The theater that I went to didn't really take full advantage of these stylistic options because the projectionist was drunk or something, and the aspect ratio was just all messed up, and I just know that is a projectionist issue, not a stylistic choice, because that's not how this film is supposed to look at all. But I could still appreciate a lot of what was going on in the frame. I think having some of these moments of archival footage before the Fantastic Four got their powers were shot very interestingly. I liked the way that this film had interesting lighting, just felt like a real cinematic film, and I got really excited in the first act of this movie because I'm starting to love this new direction that Marvel is going and building off the momentum that they had with Thunderbolts, which I also really enjoyed. I did like that movie a little bit more than this one because I do think the film begins to lose its way a little bit, and by the time we hit the conclusion, it does do some things that I've seen in a lot of superhero movies and I'm just honestly really tired of. But the first half of this, I was really digging. I was locked in. I love the dynamic between all of the characters. And having seen the mid-2000s Fantastic Four films as a kid and, thinking they were fine enough and just completely missing Fan Four Stick because there was just no point in seeing that movie, I can confidently say that I think this is the best Fantastic Four movie in every single regard, and I think that begins with the characters. I just buy into the family dynamic of all four of these characters: Reed Richards, Sue Storm, Johnny, and the Thing. I mean, just the way they build this dynamic, I really, really enjoyed. I bought into the chemistry between Pedro Pascal and Vanessa Kirby's characters. I think they worked wonderfully together, and you can tell there is a little bit of real life chemistry as well. The memes with Dokes from Dexter have been absolutely hilarious. I've just been obsessed with them and Pedro Pascal and what's happening there. But anyway, I digress. In the film, they're pretty terrific, and I buy into their bond, even if Reed Richards comes off a lot more colder than I really anticipated. But I kind of like that direction. It kind of put some tension in the team, and I think that was really needed to give some of these characters a little bit of depth and make you question a little bit about who they are and their intentions and the way they approach certain situations. Reed Richards is so analytical and sometimes forgets about the heart and soul and the connection someone has with another person. I think Sue Storm just kind of carries a lot in this film. Vanessa Kirby is excellent, but honestly, the standout character for me was Johnny, played by Joseph Quinn. I think he was absolutely terrific. I honestly thought he was just going to be a dumb, goofy character there to crack jokes a mile a minute. And yeah, there is some of that in here, but the character is also very earnest in his intentions in trying to help the team and not always being taken seriously. And the way that it plays around with that, and while also illustrating that he's quite an intelligent character in his own right, was incredibly well done. And I really appreciated that dynamic. I liked the way that he interacted with Pedro Pascal's Reed Richards, and the way that Reed Richards just kind of writes him off all the time, and Johnny really just trying to prove that he belongs in this team. And it leads to some nice moments in the final act of this movie. I think the thing is sometimes a bit of an afterthought. There is a little bit of a love interest arc in there that doesn't really seem to go anywhere. And there is this recurring joke about the Thing's catchphrase. But I think as a character, I think he's a little bit wasted and is clearly the afterthought of the group. And then there are the antagonists of the film, Silver Surfer and Galactus. And I think while they're both pretty good in this movie, and I do like the performances that both actors give in their respective roles, I'm a big fan of Ralph Ineson, and just seeing him in a big MCU film like this and playing a character like Galactus just feels perfect for him and his incredibly unique voice. But I do feel like someone on the scale of Galactus, who's been hyped up a lot over the years, and someone that a lot of Marvel fans have been wanting to see in an MCU film, it just feels like another standard MCU villain to me. He doesn't really do all that much for me. And I think he could have been a lot more interesting compared to what we got here. And I kind of think the same with the Silver Surfer. I think there are moments where you get to see a little bit of depth to this character that are interesting, but honestly, it just doesn't quite go anywhere. And her arc is very predictable in this movie. Once you get past a couple of these scenes and the way that she interacts with certain characters, especially with Johnny Storm, is interesting again, and once again adds to the layers of Johnny Storm as a character and how he's an interesting negotiator and trying to figure out a lot more about the Silver Surfer. But once again, that's another character that is really built up in Marvel lore and is quite a big deal. And I once again just don't think they do quite enough with her character. I think both of them could play out to be something interesting in an Avengers movie. I don't know if they're going to explore that further with Doomsday. We'll have to wait and see for that. But yeah, who knows? And I don't think this does all that much really to set up a whole lot to do with that Avengers movie. I think they subvert expectations a little bit after we see the post-credit scene in Thunderbolts and our preconceived assumptions of what happened to the Fantastic Four's world. And it all just didn't go in a direction that I quite liked. It all felt really generic and kind of annoying to me. I just really wanted more from where it was going. And I think as a whole, yeah, the stuff it sets up for the grander MCU can be somewhat interesting. There's a post-credit scene here that is just a nice teaser for that Avengers movie. But yeah, once again, there's nothing crazy in here like that. I think it's just trying to do a good job of setting up the Fantastic Four as characters. And I think as characters, they are interesting enough. And I think it succeeds on that front. But as I said, I just do think the film is empty calories, and there are just some tropes in here that I just cannot stand. There's something that happens at the end of this film. It almost sucks you in on this idea, and then it just does the same old MCU thing. And yes, it's kind of predictable because you can tell who's going to be in the next movie from the cast list already. But something happens in here and you're like, oh wow, they're going to go in this bold direction, and I thought that was kind of interesting, and they kind of held it for a little while. And then they just pull out of it. And that's something to me that I hate seeing. I cannot stand it. If you're going to go in that direction, you need to commit to it. And if you've seen them film, you know exactly what I'm talking about. I also think there are some pretty lame visual effects at times. For the most part, I think it looks interesting. I think Reed Richards' stretch powers, for example, have the potential to look awful in a film, and they have done before. But here they look pretty good. But There is something to do with a CGI baby, which looks horrendous. I mean, did they not take any lessons from Twilight, what happened there? And yes, I know visual effects have advanced so far since then, but there's just something about a CGI baby that you can just never get right. And even in this, it looked goofy, it looked out of place. I could not buy into this baby character at all. Even if the film wanted to sell me on how important it was, couldn't care less, I'm sorry, because I just couldn't connect to this digital thing that just doesn't come to life in a way that I quite wanted to. Overall, I think Fantastic Four First Steps is an alright movie. I think it's solid. There are plenty of things that I like about it. I think it's charming enough. I do like that there's real costume and production design in this, which look fantastic, by the way. I think this is some of my favorite costume design of the year. And I like the score and everything like that. And I like that it has a distinct identity. That's something that the MCU has lacked for a lot of its run. And so seeing that in here, I really enjoyed, and I want to see more of that. I just wish the story structure just was as experimental as the stylistic choices, because then it wouldn't all feel so surface level. Regardless, as I said, it's a fun movie and I recommend it to you guys. And as a score, I'm going to give this film a 3.5 out of 5 because it's a solid time. And those are my thoughts towards Fantastic Four First Steps. If you've seen the movie, let me know what you think about it in the comments below. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Remember to like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.